So,
Okay.
we as the Atheist Republic in Cape Town, we're a community of atheists, and we've been meeting online and we just have these discussions. And somebody mentioned, like, why are there so few, women and African atheists? And I said, well, I'm sure there's got to be some people out there. So I started searching and I found a couple of people, and I decided, let's just have a quick discussion about your journey and who you are, and if you've got something online, we can point people to that. Just to normalize the idea that there are women and African atheists out there. Just to break that stereotype. I guess I can just start by telling you a bit about myself. I've been an atheist now for probably about 10 years. I just reached the point where I looked. I was always, like, I was brought up in a very small bubble where I thought, there's only one religion, and as soon as
Oh, yes, yes,
as soon as
yes.
my horizons opened up and I discovered, wow, there's actually like so many different religions out there. I thought to myself, wait a minute, like, it's not possible for all of them to be right at the
For
same time. So
yes.
that led me to the conclusion that yeah, no, it's all bullshit. So it wasn't like that, like a
It
quick process.
it's
I woke
usually
up one
like a
morning and I was an
gradual,
atheist. It was a gradual process of
yeah.
letting go. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
usually like
yeah.
a gradual process, yeah. Um, for me, it was basically I was brought up in a Catholic home, so I wouldn't say it was super religious in
Yeah.
that I wouldn't say it was super religious in that um I was raised in a bubble. It was a very liberal space, you know. In fact, I only ended up being an atheist after deciding. Funny enough, I had aspirations of becoming a deacon, a reverend, and so I told myself, hey, if I want to deepen my faith, if I want to uh, deepen my journey, let me study the faith deep. Let me study the Bible, and so I read the Bible, and the stuff I found in there was like, yeah, no, 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 no. Again, as you said, it wasn't similar to you. It wasn't a quick thing like a switch. It was like a gradual thing where you're like, yo, no, 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 no.
Uh,
And this was since 2018. So it's been 19, 20, 3 years. Yeah. I
right,
guess
right,
the rest
right.
is history. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. People always say the quickest way to make an atheist is for them to actually read and
To read
study
the
the
Bible.
read and study the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to stay a believer, you just got to read it. You've got to let somebody else read it for you.
I guess I guess partly the reason to why I started my YouTube channel is because YouTube played a huge part
Uh,
in 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 my education in terms of religion, philosophy, epistemology. Your big names like
yeah, yeah.
Matt Dillahunty, Richard Dawkins, all those household atheist names. YouTube got me into that space, particularly what's the show? The Atheist Experience and Talk Eden. I used to watch that show every
Yeah.
Sunday, like, yeah. But I think I was very
Yeah, me too. I
inspired.
also.
I was very inspired by uh YouTube creators such as Rationality Rules, Stephen Woodford, Rationality Rules, the Genetically Modified Skeptic. Those creators would make brief videos explaining specific
Mm,
topics and stuff like that. So I thought, why not from a South African perspective? Because
yeah.
I couldn't find many atheists, from South
Incredible.
Africa. Yeah, so I thought, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it's I find it, it makes me very happy to see, that there are, South African people and especially young people, because I'm old, like I'm already, I'm already over the prime, so it's very encouraging to see,
yeah,
like and yeah, I'm very happy to have encountered you, just by searching for African atheist on
yeah.
YouTube. I found you, so very, very encouraging to see. Yeah, so besides YouTube, are you involved in any other atheist groups, or is it just YouTube at the moment?
So, um, what I'd say for a quote unquote atheist activism or atheist content, it's just mainly on YouTube, and then on Facebook. I'm just part of
Right, right.
the atheist groups such as Atheist Republic. I think there's an international group for the Atheist Republic that I'm aware of, and then a couple of other Facebook groups, where people post memes and then troll on whatever religious person decides to join the group and starts preaching and then
Exactly.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
But
atheist groups on Facebook is generally a meme factory.
it's yeah. But for content, it's mainly YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible. You know, I once heard somebody say to me, you know what, atheism is un-African, and I said to them, like, what are you talking about? Christianity is un-African. you know,
Yes.
don't come with that
Yes.
nonsense to me.
It's interesting you mentioned that. It's interesting you mentioned that because there is
It's
a
very
video.
interesting.
There's a video I made that was that talks about the video was titled National Anthem, National Pride, where it talks about
Right?
I talk about the national anthem, where it's like, what does our national anthem say about South Africa? Because I basically translate what the different languages say, and it's basically praying. The first half is just prayer, prayer.
Exactly.
God
Yeah,
bless Africa, da da da.
yeah,
It says nothing towards. It says nothing about what what South Africa, what the different languages, the different cultures, the diverse. It says nothing towards that, and it's interesting you
exactly.
mentioned that. This is the same argument I
Yeah,
make on a daily basis, where it's like, dude, you can't be telling me about Africanism and then you tell me about Christian again. Like, it does not, though. You know, African traditions are
I,
older than Christianity existing in Africa itself. You know, so yeah, I feel like it's
exactly.
it's it's it's
Yeah,
still it's still it's still a nuanced topic that sort of needs to be normalized. You know, have you ever heard of
exactly. Yeah.
people talking about the decolonized national anthem? Have you ever heard of that? Where
I haven't
it's
heard of it, no, but I've heard of this whole decolonization movement per se. Yeah.
okay. So basically, the decolonized, you should uh check it out on, or maybe on YouTube or something. But basically, it's like it's the first part of the national anthem where it's the Nkosi Sikelel, because the national anthem is Nkosi Sikelel Africa Maluphakanyiswe uphondo lwayo, basically means God bless Africa, may her glory be lifted high. The decolonized, quote unquote, decolonized national anthem basically repeats those two lines. Where it's like, Nkosi Sikelel Africa,
Right.
may her glory, and that's it. And it just makes no sense to me. It's like, guys, I mean, you know.
Exactly. What's the point?
It's yeah, but I think
No,
it's still,
I think it's a legacy. The legacy of colonization really goes all the way back to when the Europeans first landed here. They came with religion. They brought religion with them. And it's even in the rest of Africa. Like I've been in touch with the guys from Atheists in Kenya. I've been speaking to an atheist lady in Nigeria, and it's incredible how the entire continent of Africa, I mean, from the Sahara to the south, like Christianity's had such a big influence, and it basically enslaves people mentally. It enslaves them to this idea of them being lesser than, and it doesn't allow people to empower themselves, because they're always looking for their power to come from an outside source.
And unfortunately, sometimes it plays into people's sense of heritage, where if let's say, for example, I approach someone as a closer person in the context of heritage, where let's say, for example, I'd say I pay homage to my ancestors, for example. Let's just say, for argument's sake, I'm saying I pay homage to my ancestors as the closer people do, as my parents did, as my grandparents did. And then literally the person next door, it's like, don't you know what the Bible says about worshipping other gods? And I'm like, wow, are you? Yeah.
It's
but I think, I just think
this is the thing, is like, we have such a rich cultural history, especially in the African traditions. We've such a rich cultural history that Christianity just suppresses that. Like it wipes it out of the way, and it basically robs people of that identity. We become these anglicized Western ideas of Christian ideals. It's extremely oppressive, in my opinion.
It's such it's such an interesting contrast where you compare you have your regular Christians who are let's say you have your devout Christians who are like, hey, Bible, church, da 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 da, and then you have your regular people who just believe in God just for the sake of like, probably cool, I always find it as an interesting contrast. Basically, your people who are like, I'm spiritual but not religious, and it's like, okay, cool, but but it's an interesting thing for me where I find Tuguti, it's just like a different spectrum, for the same reason why you have a thousand flavors of the same religion. You have Catholic, you have Methodist, you have the list goes on.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I never get this idea of people who who talk about the I'm spiritual but I'm not religious. What is a spirit? What are they actually talking about? That's I don't understand it. And you can ask them. You can say like, what is a spirit? What are you talking about? Nobody will be able to tell you.
In fact, I want to add on to that. In that, I'd say in discussions, I literally tell people, if you say you're a religious person versus a spiritual person, I'd give more credibility to the religious person, because at the very least, a religious person follows a structure of like, okay, cool. What I know, I've learned from this structure, from this whatever. Versus if you are
Exactly. There's some
if you're a
dogma and
spiritual
principles
person,
and everything.
yes, it sort of makes sense when you say, if you're a religious person, it makes sense in that, okay, you've been taught the structures, the dogma, the indoctrination. A spiritual person, basically, for me, it's like, it's even crazier, because to me, all it says is just like, oh, okay, so you just make up your own shit, whatever seems good to you at the time is that's what it is for me. Like, if you come to me and tell me like, no, nah, I'm spiritual, not religious, you lose the credibility that the religious person has over you. That's just it's those things that sound good on paper, but when you actually look at it, it's like, it sounds good when you say it, but when you look at it on paper, it's like,
Yeah.
it's
It's a deepity, like what did Daniel Dennett calls them deepities. They're
Yeah.
things that sound profound, but they are actually empty.
yes. I mean, it's
Exactly.
in I've I'm a part of like a few WhatsApp groups where like people will come, they'll call me, where it's like, okay, cool, and then they'll have these different discussions. They'll ask me, okay, what's your point on religion? Why do you feel this way? And then a person will come and like, but I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And I'm like, even worse. That's even crazier, because at least this person, if my friend who says they're Christian, at least I know what the doctrine is. I can follow your the scriptures systematically.
Yeah.
It makes a bit more. It's a bit more structured. It makes more sense. And then when a spiritual person is like, today I just
Exactly.
woke up. Today I just feel like, it's just a weird thing. But it's so interesting when you take. In fact, I realized there's this thing. A lot of, I'd say, experienced atheists, or that atheists who've been atheists for a long time, they'll call it a phase like of the what's this thing? An angry atheist phase, where it's like when you deconvert, you're like, hey, my parents lied to me, people lied to me, this is such a lie. Oh my goodness. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
when I look back,
It's natural.
literally,
Like it's natural to go through that.
yeah,
They call it the angry phase. It's natural because if you look at it logically, you've been conned. Like you've been
yeah,
told a lie and you believed it, and when you realize this, you feel stupid. You
yeah,
feel stupid and you're going to feel angry. And the best way to express that, and the natural way to express that, is to expel that anger from your body.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
first target that usually comes up is is the person that comes to you with 6,000 years ago, Adam and Eve in the garden, and then they get it.
Aye. But there's this sort of there's this, I wouldn't say, maybe I'd say maybe I'm less angry about it, where the initial outlook
Yeah.
I had was that I feel like my parents lied to me. That was my initial thing, where it's like,
Yeah.
now versus now, when I
Yeah.
look at it, it's like they didn't lie to me. They didn't lie to me. Lying implies
No.
that
No.
lying implies that you are intentionally deceiving, right? I look at it now, I'm like, okay,
Exactly.
for example, my parents are religious, right? But it's like they're doing what they thought was the right thing. You know, I take a step back, I look at it
Exactly,
with
exactly.
a
Yeah,
with
there's no ill
a,
intent. Like parents will
yes,
never. Very seldom parents will try to, deliberately harm their children. Like
yeah,
they did what they thought was best for you, and it was in your best interest. Like it's never
yes,
done with malicious intent. I think. So.
yeah, it's
You do. We all have to go through that process where you actually forgive people and you say like, okay, I understand that you did this just because you thought it was in my best interest, and
yeah,
I understand that, and you move out of that. But I was lucky in the sense that my mother passed away quite a long time ago. So I didn't have to go through that process
that
with her.
phase.
But with
Oh,
my aunt and my cousins, they were all very shocked. Like they thought they're gonna hear some story in the newspaper of me worshipping the devil under
or
the
eating
in the
babies.
moonlight and all of that nonsense.
Yeah, it's it's
Yeah, no, it's strange.
I'd say similarly in that I was lucky in that my parents are more liberal in that they're very like
Yeah,
explore ideas, have good reasons
yeah,
to have good reasons to hold the beliefs you do,
yeah,
so I was just fortunate in that. Okay, cool.
yeah,
uh Coming out to my mom was easy. It was
yeah,
like, mom, I've graduated from church. It's like and but coming out
yeah,
to my dad was a bit trickier because he was more like he was more like a devout member of the Catholic Church, where it's like, yeah, I was that kid who was like, oh,
right, right.
I was the altar boy. I was, just did
Okay.
everything. I was very active, but it was like coming out to my dad, because my dad was also like
Yeah,
a very active member of the church. Was like, hey, I had no idea how he would react, but fortunately, it was like, yeah, dad,
yeah,
and I was like, no, man, it's cool. you know time from time time to time,
yeah,
we'd have discussions, like maybe I'd post the
yeah,
status, well, maybe questioning a particular doctrine, or questioning a certain verse, or maybe I'll talk about the Crusades, something, and then we'd have a discussion. We'll talk it out, talk it out, and we'll leave it at that. And so fortunately for me, I'm in that sort of like good place where it's like, okay, I'm free to do that with my parents. It's it's
excellent. That's amazing to have that relationship and that freedom and
yeah,
openness. Like it sounds like you've got a relationship with your parents where you can have a dialogue with them, and
yes,
interact.
definitely,
And
definitely.
that's an amazing place to be. Yeah.
I think it ties into your initial question, where you asked, why aren't there, or why is atheism associated mainly with white people? It's never white males generally. It's never, you
Yeah.
never, you don't, when you think atheist, you don't generally think African or woman, or it's generally, I think that in that in contrast to a situation that I have with that I had in my household, generally I think in a lot of African households, parents are very devout. It's crazy. They tend to be very, very, very devout and religious, where it it spans to the thing of what is it, even sexuality is a big deal. If you find out ukuthi my son is homosexual, I cannot allow that. The Bible is clear.
Mm.
Usually in a lot of African homes,
Right.
the
Right.
justification for for ostracizing or kicking out your child for homosexuality is in the Bible. I rarely ever find justifications outside of the fact of, oh no, it's usually the Bible in most cases, or not just the Bible but the religion. In some house, in some, I do know a few Muslim families, where it's like it's the religion, you homosexuality, it's a no, that could get you kicked out, you know. Sometimes it spans to also pregnancy, where it's like, oh, especially to the females, where it's like, oh, you having.
It's it's strange that you mention it, because religion tries to control every aspect of your life. It tries to control your sexuality, your relationships. Even women, it tries to control them in every aspect of their life. What they wear, how they look. Like it takes.
Yes.
It takes that whole freedom of individuality, and we expressing ourselves as individuals, it takes that away from you. You stop becoming yourself. You become, Dean the Christian. My name is Dean and I am a Christian. It's not just my name is Dean, I happen to have Christianity or something like that. It's very crazy.
It becomes, as you say, it becomes a part of your identity.
Aspect plays into it.
Yeah, because it becomes it no longer becomes an ideology that can stand on its own to be criticized, because immediately, generally 9 out of 10 times you criticize any particular religion, it becomes a personal attack, because people adopt it, they make it
take it personal.
When, because it becomes an annoying thing where I have to explain it explicitly, where it's like, guys, I am not being disrespectful. A religion is an idea, it's an idea. The same way you are entitled to an opinion of safety belts save lives. That is an opinion that you can hold. I can criticize that as an idea without criticizing you. It's such an important distinction to make, because to people, religion isn't an ideology that stands on its own. It's a part of a person, But I think it feeds in. It feeds into our dialogue, where it's like we need it. It feeds into our dialogue and how we have dialogues with theists, productive dialogues and the likes.
Yeah, that's crazy. And especially what also came to mind, now that you mention this whole cultural identity, especially with our African family structures, they tend to be patriarchal, firstly in nature.
Yes.
And there's a very close knit society, and this is I think it's a cultural expression that, that an extension of that idea of Ubuntu, we are because of our community. That people tend to be very, connected to one another, and it forces, how can I say, a homogeneous thought pattern. People all, if somebody thinks differently, they are immediately part of the out group. They don't fit into
us versus them.
That particular community. So exactly.
It's a thing of where it's interesting you mentioned, because I listened to the previous call you had. It's such a weird thing, because you'll even find that oh, my son is marrying a Muslim woman. Wow, amazing, so diverse. Wow, and then same person's like, oh, there's no ways you're marrying this heathen, this devil. What it's 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 just one of it's just one of those things, as you said, those deepities where you you hold it in principle as an idea, but it's something you just hold it as principle. But once you look into it, where it's like, okay, wait, let me actually analyze, why do I hold this principle? Why why am I fine with
Exactly.
someone in a different religion but not with someone that's in no religion? That's where you find, once you look at it deeply, it becomes a thing that's absurd.
Mm. I think, like we as a species, we are very tribal. We're very tribal.
Mm.
So immediately, we recognize people of our own group. So that's why you'll find people generally, they don't do it on purpose, but they tend to,
Yeah.
like I will, for example, be extremely open to talking with an atheist and sharing information, personal information, like because I implicitly trust them as part of my group. And I think the religious people
Yeah.
work on the same principle. Like they also,
Yeah.
they are inherently tribal about their group. When they find that there's an outsider, it's a threat to the tribe. So they'll
Yeah.
try to protect the tribal instinct. I think it's purely evolutionary.
But yeah, it's interesting, just you were to think about, to to think about that comparison where, for, because I'm making a direct comparison where, if you have an atheist, for example, coming into a religious group where it's like, oh no, what's going on? There's this person. Uh, hide your kids. Hide your, it's like
Exactly.
the ideas, versus, for example, you have a religious person coming into an atheist group on Facebook, for example, where the person spouts a few verses, and then people just troll in the comment section. They just like, for example, I remember, I think it was when a lady came uh into the Facebook group. I forgot what she said. I think she quoted a Bible verse or something, and she's like, "Guys, please find God. Don't." Someone first comment quoted, I think, verse from Timothy that says, "I shall not permit a woman to have authority over a man. Woman, please be quiet." And it was like, self-own. you know, it's
Exactly. But the Bible, the
it's
Bible is
it's
such a
just,
big
yeah,
book of errors and contradictions. Like you really, um, you know, uh, it's so easy to basically find one part that contradicts another part. There's this one website that I
yeah,
found that actually shows like a graph of all the different places
yeah,
where it says one thing in the one part
but
and one thing,
different.
and it's like this rainbow of just connections. But yeah, no, I'm really not, as literature, I'm not really impressed with the Bible. It doesn't really do anything for
Yeah,
me. I've read it. I read it as a
I,
child. I was brought up with it, but
yeah,
doesn't impress me much.
but it's,
Yeah,
as you say, as literature, it I can appreciate in that it it puts you in the mindset of what it's like.
exactly. Yeah,
It puts you in the
yeah,
mindset of that typical patriarchal man trying, that
yeah,
a typical patriarchal man trying to compensate, I guess, to some extent, especially the
yeah,
homophobia. You find the
yeah,
homophobia. It's sort of like it puts you in. It makes more sense when you realize that a Bible, that it's a book that was written by patriarchal men, you know, to
yeah.
rule a society of that time. Where it's like, oh, okay, people who are insecure, who have sort of like that weird
Oh, exactly.
masculinity
You know,
as it
it's like
pertains
I said
to,
earlier. You know, like it's a book to control. You know, it just it seeks to control and repress. You know, because I think at that time, the planet was a lot more hostile towards life. You know, so people probably tried to to create structures within their societies to
yeah,
ensure the longevity for that society, but we've evolved beyond that now, like we don't need that kind of nonsense to keep ourselves alive anymore. The only thing that it's doing is it's keeping us from
yeah.
progress. That's the thing, it's
I mean,
I
it's
heard it
yeah,
said once, I don't remember where
it's
exactly, they called religion or mind forged manacles, which is, it just it enslaves your mind and binds your mind into, it's basically like mental slavery. That's the thing that, that when I let go of religion, like I felt so free, and it's like, all the Christians tell me, yeah, but you just wanted to sin, you've just got sin on your mind. So I'm going, so I'm going like, don't knock sin until you've tried it, like it's.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting thing you mentioned, because in terms of what freedom is, for me, it was like immediately when I realized, because initially there was a lot of backlash within myself when I started
Yeah.
asking those questions. It's like, this that I'm reading here in Exodus is objectively moral, and God is doing this.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
at the same time, my brain is like,
Yeah.
hey, when now? What are you? Hey, you can't say that. Why you? How dare I say God is immoral when I I was literally having those battles in my head where it's like, and I guess, like I said, it was that epistemology. Those tools of reasoning. Why, why do I even?
That's the thing.
What reason do I even think?
Yeah.
What reason do I even think to?
Yeah.
To why do I even have that God belief in the first place? Those types of questions, those fundamental, those tools of deductive reasoning. Those are the tools that help me reason my way out of. I remember when I left, sort of that 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 paradigm shift where it's like, I guess I'm an atheist.
Right.
This should be interesting. I remember being so excited
Yeah.
to just learn
Exactly,
and
yeah.
look into philosophy, look into science, look into history in a way that I'd never had before. Where it's like, because initially before that it was Adam and Eve, somewhere dinosaurs. I don't know. I'd never looked into history
Exactly.
deeply enough. I guess to a certain extent, because I knew, maybe at the back of my head, that if I did look into it, it would probably fall apart. There is that thing
Yeah.
that's taught into religions, that don't question, don't question. The people that leave the religion, the heathens, are the ones that question, are the ones that become too smart, are the ones that are too scientific.
Exactly.
I guess I always had that at the back of my head, pushing me away from asking those critical questions. But when I was able to get past that barrier, my outlook it has never been the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's incredible. Like I said earlier to you, like it does my heart so good. When I meet new atheists, young atheists, and it's not, it's people who've given this a lot of thought. Like it's not, some
Yeah.
rebellious person that's just like, wow, I'm angry at God or whatever. Like so. So it really gives me hope, and
Yeah.
I'm very glad to have met you, Okuhle. Let's wrap it up
Thank you
here.
for reaching out.